Hello, Ben. Thank you very much for coming down here for an in-person interview. I was surprising to hear that you'd be willing to do that. I saw your £1,000 win in the wins channel for copywriting. So I reached out to you, and here we are now, a few days later. I can't believe how fast everything's happening. So, how are you?
Yeah, no, of course. I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very well and just getting to work, really. It's nice to be able to take a bit of time out of my schedule to come and do something a bit different.
Mhm.
But it's a great experience and not one I could really pass up, in all due
Great.
respect.
So, let's begin with I'd like to go into your past. So, how's your upbringing? Anything to talk about there?
Yeah, of course. So I would consider myself very fortunate in my upbringing. I grew up in a nice house, strict parenting. I was kept away from the negative aspects of life you could consider, the drugs, everything else. And I was always told from a very young age that if I wanted something, I'd have to earn it. And I think being taught that from such a young age has really helped me moving forward. It's meant that I've had to go out of my way to earn something, and nothing was ever given to me, which is why when this entire thing came around, I thought I'd have to go at the opportunity, because what better opportunity is there to get?
So, speaking about this opportunity, how did you find out about it?
So I was working at a summer camp this summer, and I returned home early September. And when I came back, because while I was away, we didn't get much access to our phones. It was 24/7 responsibility of children, apart from our 2 hours off every evening, in which time we didn't spend on social media much. It was very centered around contacting friends and family from home. But when I returned home, I returned back to the life I had before. Now, yes, I've had to earn everything I had, but I never thought of excelling myself in areas which I probably could have earlier in my life. And I returned home and I gave myself quite a few excuses to kind of lay back and get settled back into a old bad habit routine. And when I returned, I started going back onto the TikTok. I didn't have much of my phone, so I was going through the TikTok, the Instagram Reels, everything else. And it really hit home and quite resonated with me when I started to see masculine clips, Andrew Tate clips, everything start coming through my phone and my feed. My algorithm was feeding me constantly. And a lot of it made me think there's got to be more to what I'm doing. I came home, I didn't know whether to go back into the 9 to 5 job or the hospitality with irregular hours and no social life. And nothing seemed like it could be worse at that time. After seeing the success stories of a load of other people, especially at that time when Hustlers University, which was originally, started coming into the scene, and more people were joining by the day, and all I could see was that it was having a positive effect on all these different people and all these positive reviews. I thought, there's something else out there that I haven't seen. And that led me on my way. I signed up for Hustlers University, which is now the real world, as of the 14th of November, or 14th of October, 14th of November,
Okay.
14th
Wow.
November.
Yeah. Very recent. Okay.
Very recent.
So, £1,000 in less than 3 months?
Less than 3 months. So I was in Hustlers University for just over a month before it transitioned into the real world. And the real world's been open for just over a month now. It's 14th of November it opened up. And there's so many different modern wealth creation methods that I never even knew existed before joining. And since I've joined, it's really opened my eyes to everything that we've never been taught growing up. So I've just turned 20 years old as well. I turned 20 in October. And so I've recently come out of the schooling system. I didn't know whether to go into university, but I'm very glad I didn't, if I'm honest. I believe university is something that you go into if it's a very, very necessary requirement. The doctors, the nurses, the veterinarians, the dental experts, everything around that kind of industry where you specifically need a university degree to do the extended learning. I completely agree with it. But I believe that there's so many degrees out there now that you can achieve, one might say, that really don't take you far. There's loads of people up and down the country that are achieving the same degrees. And inside the real world, there's 18 modern wealth creation methods. Also, social skills and sales superstardom, financial wizardry, and business mastery courses updated very, very regularly. And it's something that I never knew existed before, and something that I've really given myself to for the last 2.5 months.
What a great answer. I love that. What you're speaking about degrees, completely. As Andrew says, double inflation. There's more every year and it costs more every year, so it doesn't make sense, yeah. Now, when you started off in Hustlers University, did you start off full-time or was it part-time with the hospitality on the side?
Yeah, of course. So I started Hustlers University when I didn't actually have a job at the time.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I was giving myself all these excuses not to get back into anything. I thought I'd give myself time to get over the jet lag. My mindset was all over the place. I had absolutely no discipline. And discipline is something I believe cannot be taught. Now, yes, I was never given anything for free. I had to earn everything. But aside from that, discipline is the only thing that will get you further in life. And there's a quote out there, and it says, a strong man is motivated, but a disciplined man is unstoppable. And discipline is something I've had to teach myself very recently, and I've had to structure a routine to make sure that I fit in the hours of work that are required to make X amount of money, or at least make X amount of development in the field that I've gone into, copywriting, one of the many different areas inside the real world. And I eventually decided that while I was starting off in copywriting, it was going to be a slow process. There are people way ahead of me. There's people that have put in many hours before me, many hours before I turned up. So I had to go back into hospitality just to keep my head above water. Now I only do that part-time, and then I'm doing the 8 to 10 hours per day on the side on copywriting. But as it shows, and it has shown me recently, that with discipline, if you put in the hours, put in the work, you will absolutely receive the results.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you told as well before joining, that it's not some get-rich-quick scheme. You need to put in the work and then you will see the results.
Exactly. And I believe that a lot of people join with the idea, and I couldn't tell you where the idea is from because anyone in a senior position would never have said it, that there's an immediate ROI, return on investment. There is no immediate return on investment without putting the work in. And as soon as you put the work in, there absolutely is. And that goes tenfold. There are verified millionaires inside the real world that are the professors of each different modern wealth creation method. And they've been chosen specifically to teach everyone in that field. And the only thing I couldn't stop thinking about at the time of joining was, what if they had this kind of platform before they started out? Because they've done it from ground zero with absolutely no idea of a network, no idea of any educational resources all in one place. They did it from the ground up. So if they started off with something like the real world to begin with, their growth would have been exponential even quicker than it was.
Yeah, and even to add on to that, where else will you get access to 18 millionaires? At least 18. These are verified.
At least 18. There's a few in each course.
Yeah, for the price that the real world is.
Exactly. And
you get so much for it.
And unfortunately, those who aren't in it did miss out on a great opportunity of the starting cost at $49, which it originally was. Now that it's moved to the real world, it is $149. But even then, my return on investment has been 7 times already. And it is only a recurring fee of $49 after that per month, which is an absolute bargain, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm. Completely agreed. What do you think about the community of people in the real world? What has been your experience with them?
The community inside the real world is really interesting. I went into it not knowing what to expect. I was obviously sold the idea of there being the professors and everything else that comes with it, the knowledge of them, the courses being regularly updated, but it's really nice to see and very interesting to always come onto the chats every day that I log on and there's always new engaged students. There's people joining every single day, people making that first big step that you do need to take these days. As you said earlier, inflation is skyrocketing, and there's no way out of it with the current methods that we're taught in school about how to achieve a certain amount of money to give you the position of financial freedom. Yeah, and the community, it's always nice to see these new faces, but there's also a very supportive role inside the community as well. The more you support the rest of the community, the higher your rank becomes. So there is a hierarchy inside the real world. And the more hours you put into the real world, the more you get out. And you also become more of an influential figure inside of the chat rooms. At the moment, it currently revolves around chess pieces. So you begin off as a pawn and then you make your way up through the roles. But there is going to be a revamp soon. As we're told in the real world by many of the professors, there will be a revamp soon to make it more of a hierarchical system. So there is more to achieve, as well as the financial rewards that come from learning.
Great. Now that you're on this path, where do you see yourself heading in the next few years?
In the next few years, well, I've gained the clients I have currently. I don't currently have a monthly retainer, but my next plan of action is to achieve a monthly retainer. There are so many other people that already have them. The beauty of it as well, copywriting in particular, is that it's an unsaturated market. Now, there are a few thousand people in the course that are doing it as well, but because it's something that isn't taught in school, no one knows about it. No one outside of the real world really knows about copywriting, and if they do, they wouldn't have the access to all of the resources they do, and therefore they will never achieve their full potential.
Yeah, when I used to do copywriting as well when I started out, and when I tell people I do copywriting, they instantly just think of the legal copywriting thing. And they just don't know what it is.
Yes, and many people deter from that idea of the legal copywriting as opposed to actual text, landing pages, email sequences, product descriptions, and everything else that revolves around it as well. It encompasses so much more.
And just that skill you learn of selling, it's transferable to every area of life. Have you noticed any transferences to your other areas? I don't know.
No, of course. So I also started off in the marketing bootcamp. Now, the marketing bootcamp shows everything surrounding marketing, and it deters into different paths. Now, everyone takes different paths inside the marketing bootcamp, but there are so many aspects to it. If I were to talk about it, I would be here for hours because there is so many hours of learning around it as well. But there are so many aspects to each course, and there's not one particular path you can take with each one. Hence, there are so many people that are successful because no one is ultimately always competing against each other. Now, life, and this is something that I didn't realize to the extent I now do before I was in the real world, but life is ultimately competitive. Now, you can hear that however many times you want, but until you realize just how dedicated some people are to their craft, you will never truly know the extent to how much someone is outworking you before you begin to do that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the competition, the friendly competition is such a big boost in productivity and everything. Completely agree. So I'll try to restructure the question, see if I can get another answer with that. So with copywriting, you learn selling. Have those skills translated to any other area in your life?
Oh, absolutely. So with copywriting, you learn not only the art of writing, but it's writing to persuade people to buy your product, your service, maybe not yours, maybe a different company's. That is what you're paid for ultimately. Now, I work in hospitality, so it's really interesting to see how those skills, despite it originally being in text, I can now take the language that I've learned from the real world and apply it to my real life when I'm upselling in my hospitality industry. In my previous job that I had joined at the start of Hustlers University while I was there, I upsold the most expensive bottle of white, red, and sparkling wine within the space of a month of just learning the language that was needed to be used to achieve those results.
Mm-hmm. Very nice, yeah. So out of all the options you had for what to choose to learn in the real world, why did you choose copywriting?
Yeah, of course, that's a really good question. I chose copywriting because I was always told from a young age as well that I needed to put in my grammar, my punctuation. Everything that I typed needed to be professional. And I didn't really understand the idea behind it when I was younger. I thought, I just want to abbreviate everything, put in the letter abbreviations and leave out commas and put things in big blocks rather than paragraphs. But it's really helped me make that decision in terms of the course. Now, everyone will resonate and prefer different courses, and it's a good thing that there's so many. But me personally, I knew that I could absolutely excel in an area that I've already been, you could say, practicing since that young age. I've already got that head start because I know exactly what words to use, where to put my punctuation, which grammar to use, what's more powerful than everything else. And that, combined with the teaching that I've received since, can only be a huge benefit to myself and what I could provide to that course.
And since you mentioned about teachings, what is the most impactful lesson, if you could name one, that you've learned from being in the real world?
The most impactful lesson? That's a great question. The most impactful lesson probably has to be that a network can take you places that you never thought you could go before. I believe that the access to one-on-one and direct contact with people who are verified millionaires has had such an exponential positive impact on myself because I've been able to reach out to them personally and ask them specific questions related to the course that I'm learning. And I believe that receiving advice from them and those who have been learning under them for longer than I have has been very, very influential on how I've succeeded so quickly.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Tate mentions you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
No, absolutely. I do really believe that's true. The people I've hung around with in the past, and I have absolutely nothing against these people at all, but I believe that now we're on completely different paths. I believe that is very true, and the people I have hung around with in the past and still would be more than happy to see, but just don't spend my regular time with, are people that prefer to, after when they finish their shift or when they finish their work, they go out, they go to the party scene, they spend their money on booze and everything else that comes with that on a night out. And I've chosen a completely different side to the idea. I mean, it's each to their own, but I believe that the path I'm taking is the right path, and they believe the path they're taking is the correct path for them.
And that click for you to choose that different path, you're saying, was when you saw the lack of masculinity in today's society, and you were seeing the take.
Absolutely, there really is a lack of masculinity, and I won't get too much onto that subject because we could talk about that for hours. But the algorithm that I was shown related to the person I was, and still am, and have developed into, and I believe that I resonated with a lot of what I was seeing, and I thought I had to act now, and it could have taken me without this algorithm and without seeing the likes of Tate, who did not care about his cancellation or what could happen to him for speaking up for what he believes in. I believe if I didn't see that, I wouldn't have taken the big first step that I did. And it's entirely opinionated, but there's people out there that would rather be like I originally was. They'd rather be leveling up their characters online in their video games on the PS4 and the Xbox and everything else, rather than leveling up themselves. And that's something I realised I had to do, because everyone, as a man, we start from ground zero and we gradually have to build ourselves up. We start on a blank slate, and every action we make gets us that one step closer to where we need to be. And if I'm too busy leveling up my character online rather than leveling up myself, all that's happening is it's going to take me longer. Every day I don't act is a day missed, and it's a day that someone else is that one step further than I am.
Yeah, and I'd say this is to the listener. Maybe it was insightful to you what Ben just said. And if you're looking to make the first step, a big part of it is getting to the gym and physical exercise. I see Ben's looking great. Looks like you're working out. So yeah.
Well, in comparison to what I was before, absolutely. I've absolutely realised the importance of keeping fit. A healthy body is a healthy mind. They go hand in hand. And one would be quite foolish to believe that without one you can have the other. I've had development. I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I believe that there's always the next step to climb to, however hard that might be. I believe when you get to a certain point, it becomes harder and harder and harder. But that is where the discipline we talked about earlier comes into play.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say just confidence as well. Anyone who lacks self-confidence, just go into the gym. It's so useful for that.
Absolutely, and I believe a lot of what Tate says, I resonated with, and I still do resonate with now. Not everyone will agree with what he says and everything he does say, and that's absolutely fine. Everyone will have their own opinion. However, if and this is to the listener, if you are going to base your opinion on the real world, on purely Andrew Tate, you're mistaken. Base it on not just myself, but the 170,000 other people that are spending a monthly fee to be a part of the real world, because their ROI, their return on investment, is more or will be more than they are spending. They are confident that they will receive more than they are paying, which is, I think, the most important thing to take from this, is that there are 170,000, and it's growing by the day, people making that big first step or next step if they're a monthly retainer, that they are choosing to make to better themselves in the future.
Mm-hmm. And that's great to see, yeah. I think we can end it there. Thank you very much for this speed you acted with to come on this interview. We sorted it within a few days. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to end it on one last thing as well. I believe that I had to act on such short notice. Now, I do have quite a busy schedule at the moment. My part-time job to keep my head above water and my copywriting from home. I'm practicing it. I'm developing myself in the field. It's really an artwork that you do need to continuously and persist to improve on if you're going to make it and succeed. But one thing we are taught is that speed kills, and speed is absolutely essential and imperative if you would like to succeed, because you need to act faster than your competitor, otherwise they will completely outrun you.
Yeah, and here we are now because of
Here we are now, 2 days later.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you very much for having me.